50% of mental health conditions begin before the age of 14. Trauma decontextualized in a person looks like personality. So people will be walking around saying, this is just the way I am. I'm always sad. I'm always unhappy. I don't like people like that. Somewhere along the lines of you growing up, there was some trauma that happened.
So mental health is not a Caucasian thing.
No, it's not a Caucasian thing. A lot of things that happen to us in childhood are the ones that transition to us during adulthood.
How do we manage burnout?
You've been a businessman. There's no way you're going to lead a team when you're exhausted, when you can't just do it anymore. Take time off, because again, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Every startup needs early supporters. For us, that is you. Hitting that subscribe button is the easiest, totally free way to help us attain our goal of hitting 1,000 subscribers in the next 4 months. Now, in return, I promise to bring you the people, the tools, insights, and mindset you need to level up as a CEO. No fluff, just real stuff you can use. Now, hit that subscribe button. Let's grow together. Hey, Deb.
Hello.
How are you today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you for asking. Thanks for coming on to this podcast. It's an honor to have you. I know I had quite a few conversations before today, but I do hope we'll go through a lot today. My hope is that after this conversation, we'll establish some real facts around mental health, especially around trauma, anxiety, depression, and burnout. We use these terms so loosely without understanding what they truly mean. Now, I'll start with sharing a story with you to lay a foundation, and then we'll take it from there. Now, I came into this country 2014 as a student. All right. Before then, I thought I had a good life. I think I did have a good life, but I needed more, just like every other person. And then I came into the country. Coming to Australia, it looked beautiful the first week. Went to Curtin University, looked at the beautiful buildings. I was like, wow, this is next to heaven. All right, so I thought. And then I started studying. So the first 2 weeks after study started, and then it went on like that, and things started going this quick. 1, 2, 3, I had to struggle with work, assignments, catching some sleep. I barely even caught sleep. And gradually, I felt my life, things just spiraling down. So I lost control of quite a few things. Mentally, I couldn't tell what was happening, but I just needed to go to school. I needed to work. And to make matters worse, as soon as I arrived, I thought I'd finished paying the school fee, or my school fee, only to realize I actually was given a prorated fees or something. They called it something like that. Or there's a word they used for it at the time. I can't remember the word essential. What that means is based on what you applied for at the time you applied for it, this was the cost. But when the semester started, with the review, this is not how much you've paid, and you had this much left. And that really put me off. And at the time, I believed I went into depression without knowing what was happening to me at the time. So obviously, I'll go to work, come back, try and study. I couldn't focus and study. All right. And this happened for quite a while. All I could do, I couldn't even socialize. I couldn't come out. I was looking so tattered. I used to work in the bank, so I was looking good, like, shed and tie and stuff. And this was me. I couldn't even go to the barber shop, do stuff, get stuff done. And gradually, I just felt I lost control of what was happening around me. Now, from a mental health perspective, what would you say happened to me at that point in time?
I could say a few things happened to you at the time when you transitioned from Nigeria to Australia. First of all, every time when there's a transition in our life, something shifts. It's either you get anxiety, or sometimes it could get to a point where you're depressed because you're not, you're out of your comfort zone, so to speak. So according to what you've told me about coming to Australia, you were happy initially, everything looked good, and then things started to spiral down. And you felt like you had depression. What I could maybe ask you a question: what made you feel like you had depression? What were you feeling? What were the symptoms at the time?
At the time, to be honest, I don't know what I was feeling. I just knew I wasn't okay. All right. The time depression wasn't something I knew about before moving down here. So depression, I didn't know about that time. All right. It was years later living here, hearing terms being used randomly and then doing some research, and then in hindsight, actually, I thought that was what I was going through. So for a typical person, what I went through at the time, so it would be anxiety, you were scared. As a student, as you all know, for those of us that studied here in Australia, your visa is tied to you continuing studying, and not just continuing studying, progressing accordingly. So if you're not doing very well at school, all right, what that could mean is your visa might be terminated. And so you had this constant fear of, I'm struggling to read, I'm struggling to understand what's happening, I'm struggling to understand the accent because the accent was entirely new to me. So you're in class and the lecturer is doing his best to get you to understand, but you're struggling. And so all of this, put together instilled fear in me. All right? So that was, in a nutshell, what was going on. So it was more fear, and fear led to me, locking myself up, trying to make sense of what's happening around me at the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now you've clarified that pretty well. And I think anxiety is what started happening with you, because if I could describe for you, anxiety is a feeling of nervousness, a feeling of panic, a feeling of worry about things that are happening everyday life and things that are to come. And as you have said, you are anxious about what's going to happen tomorrow. You were thinking about, how am I going to pay my school fees? You were thinking about, how am I going to attend my lectures, and how am I going to cope with that? Mm-hmm. So I could say the first thing that I picked up that was anxiety. Now, anxiety is a normal thing to happen to all of us. We go through anxiety every day. Things are happening to us. We don't know what is happening in the world. Tomorrow is going to be, you're afraid that tomorrow is going to be war. We don't know if we're going to have another epidemic and we're all going to be closed in. We do not know about the economy. We're constantly just worrying about that. But when it becomes a problem, if it is persistent and if it's excessive to a point that you cannot perform your day-to-day activities. Every time you're just panicking, what's going to happen? Every time you're just thinking, oh, am I going to pay my school fees? And it just destabilizes you to a point that you can't perform your day-to-day activities. And anxiety could be a mild anxiety. Sometimes we've got anxiety, but we still are able to perform our day-to-day activities. And then it could shift to the severe forms of anxiety, which sometimes we call panic attacks. And that presents with symptoms similar to heart attack. So you've got the palpitations, your heart is beating pretty fast. You've got shortness of breath. Sometimes people just faint for no reason. And that's when we're really concerned about a person's anxiety. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, anxiety, with that explanation, so how would you define anxiety?
Anxiety
in simple words
is a feeling of, it's basically a feeling of worry, of panic, and of fear of the present and of the future. So in anxiety, you're thinking about the future. And I'm going to give you the description with depression. We get to discuss depression, because depression is about the past, while anxiety is about the future. Or the present, or what's happening at the moment. Because, yes, you wake up in the morning and you just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to be able to feed your kids. You don't know if you're going to be able to pay your mortgage. You don't know if you'll be walking in the malls and somebody's just going to stab you. So that's thinking about now and the future as well. So, yeah, it's a feeling.
So anxiety is a feeling.
It's a feeling, yeah.
And depression as well is a feeling.
Depression is more or less the same, but it would say it's a mood disorder, but it's got characteristics of feelings. We'll get into that
I'd like us to go in there a bit.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there are three words here I like to demystify. Mm-hmm. Depression, anxiety, and burnout. Now, I feel in many ways these are all linked in some way. All right. So I'd like us to demystify anxiety, tied to demystify depression, tied to anxiety, and how it can lead to burnout. All right. So we could start by explaining what depression is. All right. What leads to depression, and if there are other forms, what are the classes of depression, if there's anything like that?
Okay, so depression, as I said, is a mood disorder which causes a person to have feeling of sadness, feelings of hopelessness, feelings of irritability, and things like, and generally just a low mood. That's, yeah. So the main distinction of or description of depression is low mood. That's just extremely low mood. You can't just be bothered with anything, really. Yeah. So day to day, your mood is just low.
What could lead someone down that path?
So could be several things that could lead to depression. And one of the things that comes strong when it comes to depression is family traits. And if there's somebody that has depression in the family, then you're likely to have depression. The other thing is trauma, things that we've gone through. And that could lead into depression, like let's say somebody's been abused, someone has been through poverty, someone has been through loss of some kind, loss of a family member, loss of jobs, or all that kind of thing. So that is some of the causes of depression.
How do we manage some of this? Because I see this in my thinking. Many of these things might not necessarily be within our control. Yeah. All right. How do we manage all of this? So trauma, sometimes it's not something you cause. It happened to you. And somewhere down the line, it could lead you down this path of depression. All right. But how do we ensure, or are there ways we could mitigate against this? How do we protect ourselves from some of these things?
That's a good question. I think a lot of the times it's nothing you can do to kind of shield yourself away from depression, because it's things that happen. You can't prevent a person from dying, for example. You may not be able to prevent yourself from losing a job or getting fired or things like that. So what happens, and a lot of the thing that really I'm here to emphasize on is people seeking to have therapy.
Therapy, what do you mean by therapy?
So therapy is a process where you speak to mental health specialists, usually psychotherapists, and they're able to go through what has been happening to you. Because some of the times the things that present in depression is things that happened to us when we were young. You were probably mistreated when you're young. You were bullied when you're young. And you know what happens when we're small? When things happen to us, we don't know how to process them as you'd process as an adult. So we keep them in our subconscious. So as we grow old and as things happen, then it means, what was I meant to say? Then it becomes, they start to come up and you don't know what to do, and you're just feeling down, and you could be thinking, oh, it's because I lost a job. Yeah, losing a job will cause you to feel sad. But something happened that just triggered in your childhood that's just making you just spiral or react that way.
So then how do you help yourself so you don't react that way? So I do think we can position ourselves in such a way, or prepare for these things in such a way that it doesn't lead us into depression. I don't know how, I don't know if that's even possible, but in my thinking, everybody will go through one issue or the other. It's life. Life will throw stuff at you, all right? Oftentimes, it's how you react to it that would then lead into one of these things. So how do we protect ourselves?
Can I just say that feeling sad, sometimes it's normal. It's normal to feel sad when things happen. And so when the sadness persists again, when the sadness is now preventing you from doing day-to-day things, that's when now we start to worry. And that's when we ask people to check in with their mental health specialist, just checking with the doctor. Because, again, depression can come in different ways. You could be having a chronic back pain that you don't know what is happening. You could be having these migraines that are just persistent. You could be having some flus, or every time you're having a flu outbreak, every time you're getting skin conditions. And what you'll be doing, a lot of the times people are running to specialists, doctors, to look for solutions, but they can't find them. And instead, they should be speaking to mental health specialists. And that once you've spoken to a mental health specialist, they can be able to refer you to a psychotherapist. And psychotherapist is where you speak, it's a talk kind of treatment where you speak to a specialist. They're able to pick out things that happened or things that are happening to you, and you're better able to handle any things that may come in the future.
I'll put this question in a different way, okay? Are there people, regardless of what they've been through, that would naturally present with depression based on certain genetic conditions, or blood group, or whatever it is, or DNA, that would naturally present with symptoms of depression? Are there people that are, like, by default, they are predisposed? These ones, just like you talk about heart conditions, there are people that, based on some family history, yes, you're going to get high. You're likely, your chance of getting this is high. And whereas there are other people that, now they don't have it, so they're not likely to have it. Is there something like that?
Yeah, there's some things that we call neurotransmitters. It's like the messengers that they go into the neurons, and that's what forms genetics. So if you're predisposed in one way or the other from birth or from region where you come from, then you could be at a higher risk of getting depression as compared to somebody who has not been through who does not have such. But the most common pointer to depression is trauma. That is the one cause or predisposing factor to depression.
Let's go to anxiety. What is anxiety?
Anxiety is a feeling of not sadness. It's a feeling of worry. You're just worried, you're just panicking, you're just unsure, and of what is happening around you, at the time and in the future.
We all feel worried.
We do.
Every day.
We do, absolutely.
When does that become an issue?
It becomes an issue when it's persistent and it's excessive, and it prevents you from doing the day-to-day activities. It's said that some anxiety is good because it protects you from danger in some way. I'll give you an example. If you had to wake up at night and you'd be like, oh, did I close my garage door? Did I lock my bedroom door? And you go and check and you find, oh, I didn't close it while I closed it. That is something that's keeping you safe. That's some anxiety in some form or shape or way. But if you have to get up 4 times at night to go and check your door, then that now becomes a problem.
Medically, are these manageable?
They are manageable.
How do you manage?
So again, we're going back to therapy. But there is the initial management that's usually you treating the symptoms that's happening. If you're getting the racing heart, you can get medication for that. There are some medications for anxiety, specific for anxiety. But the main thing that mental health specialists would be leaning towards is psychotherapy.
I've got 2 questions. The one will be, to what effect or to what extent would the medication help? Because we've read quite a few articles that, the doctors will prescribe medication, but in actual fact, these medications don't really.
It's touch and go. It's symptom control most of the times. It will relieve you for a period of time. So let's say, for example, you take some of the common ones are benzodiazepams, the diazepams and the lorazepams. That may just last for about 2 hours, 3 hours, something like that. and then you still go back again to feeling how you're feeling. So it's more symptom control with the medication other than long-term control or cure for it.
So why would a doctor prescribe?
Sometimes a person is so anxious that they cannot be able to process what they're doing. So, and when you're in that heightened state of anxiety, then it's difficult for you to be able to engage. So we want you to come to a level where, like, you are a level ground, and then you'll be able now to engage with other services. Yeah, but when you're so afraid, some people are so afraid even to be in a room with somebody else. So you can imagine taking that person to a therapist. They won't be able to talk. But when you give the medication, then that calms the initial, anxiety attack or something, and then they're able to speak and process things in a better way.
Psychotherapy, how effective is that? So explain to me what so if I present to a psychotherapist, what should I expect? What are the common, looking for the right word now. So if you were to be a psychotherapist, what would you be looking out for?
The thing that psychotherapists look for, first of all, I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm a mental health nurse. What they look for is your childhood. They're obsessed with your childhood. Because a lot of things that happen to us in childhood are the ones that transition to us during adulthood. I'll give you some statistics. 50% of mental health conditions begin before the age of 14. 50% of all mental health conditions, and 75% they begin before the age of 24. So it's very important that when you go to a psychotherapist, they will be trying to dig deep into your childhood. How was your childhood? Where did you grow up? How was your family? Because things that may have happened to us, and sometimes things that happen to us, we don't think it's traumatic, but it is traumatic. So they need to dig deep and excavate any of those things that happened to a person in their childhood.
So if you were to dig into my childhood now, based on the story I told you at the start, what would you be looking at finding out? What kind of questions would you be asking?
I want to know what kind of family you grew up in. Did you have both parents, or were your parents separated? Did your parent die? One of your parents die? Were your parents present at home, or were they gone and coming back home? Who else did you live with in the family, and what were they like? What was how many were you in the family? Were you getting enough basic needs? Those are some of the things that I would, or if I was a therapist, those are some of the things a therapist would be looking to.
I'll take that further. So I've just taken notes of a few things you've mentioned. Family, parent present, who we lived with, how many we were in the family. So for family, if I told you what family I grew up in, what would that tell you?
Depending on what family you grew up, was it a loving family? Was it a chaotic family?
What role does, okay, let's say I grew up in a loving family. What role would that play in my adult life versus if I grew up in a chaotic family?
So if you grew up in a loving family, then you're less likely to have some of these issues of anxiety and depression, because it means you're able to articulate things in a healthy way. You saw things being done in a healthy way. Nobody was shouting at you. No, you were not neglected emotionally. You were not neglected physically. So that transitions in your adulthood. You're able to now transition a healthier adult, so to speak.
Chaotic
Now,
family?
The opposite is true as well. So if you grew up maybe with a family where it was father shouting, there was alcoholism and things like that. So you find that maybe you got some coping mechanisms that you were just so afraid, because when you were young and people are shouting, sometimes you have to go and hide. Some kids go and hide under the tables, and that transitions into their adulthood. Every time they hear noise, they're like, it's in the back of their mind that noise to them means no safety. It means danger. So you find that kids that grew up in families that were chaotic turn out to be anxious kids.
What about kids without their parents, one parent or the other? What role would that play?
For the parents, depends. Like, let's say a kid lost a parent and they were unable to process all that when they were growing up. We don't know. Sometimes they develop guilt. They're thinking, oh, maybe it's me that made my dad to die or to disappear on us. So depression is likely they're likely to have depression in their later years.
Let's say a kid that grew up with one parent or the other, maybe parent divorced or something like that, or domestic violence. How would that impact on this?
Let's say the parents divorced. And they were not able to understand why is mom and dad not together? Again, it's always, it could be the child thinks, oh, it's probably me that made my dad to leave my mom, or it's probably me that made my mom to. There's always that guilty attached to what happens for a child, because they were not able to understand, and they were not talked through, like what happened. A lot of the times, people don't talk to their kids, like what is happening, So they're always thinking, oh, it probably was my fault. If I was a good child, probably they would not have divorced, daddy would not have left, mommy would not have left, and things like that. So again, the predisposing factors for anxiety and depression.
Let's go to burnout. What is burnout?
Oh, burnout. But our bodies need to reset and rest at some point. And you find that in the busyness of life, and for us trying to make ends meet, sometimes it's go, 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 go. You've got no time to reset. You've got no breaks. You find like, I remember when I came into this country, people were working 2 or 3 jobs. And it was round the clock. You're either working, like you said, you're working, you're in school, or you're somewhere. Every time you're doing something. So at some point, your body will start to give way. At some time, your body will start to feel exhausted and tired. So it's an exhaustion in an exaggerated form. Yeah, that's burnout.
I had this conversation with one of the guests, a previous guest, and the explanation that came to mind was unmet expectations. Now, unmet expectation in the sense that, we're building a business, and this comes from a business perspective. We're building a business, and you had certain expectations when you started, and you matched those expectations with the energy that it requires. So you were doing all you believe you needed to do. But then, the outcome you're getting over time isn't matching the energy you're putting in. All right? I do think, from a business perspective, that, and well, based on the conversation we had, that potentially could lead to burnout. And not necessarily, because your body as well, because you're giving an energy, you're putting in hard work, which is bodily, physically, mentally, you're putting a lot of work into this project or into this thing you're doing, work or life or whatever it is. And whilst you're putting in the work, you're expecting some tangible outcome. All right? And when those outcomes are not being met, those goals are not being met, those outcomes are not being achieved, sometimes I do think it leads to burnout. What do you think about that?
That's a nice one. But I do not see the correlation between the energy and the outcome.
Okay.
Yeah. So burnout is basically just using energy.
Yep.
You use it's like your car needs oil
Yep.
or gas, whatever gas to be able to move from point A to point B. So what happens when you run out of gas?
Stop.
Your car is going to stop. So I think burnout is really about the energy and not the outcome. I don't know how the outcome of
So our ties to
of the
what you just
business
explained.
or or the outcome of whatever you're doing is going to be
leading
into burnout. Maybe the energy that they're putting into, because they're sleeping very late or not sleeping at all.
Yep.
And they're making phone calls here and there, and
So
it's
they're fueling
go.
this stuff.
So they're using their energy, but then the outcome is not. So it's got nothing to do with the outcome. It's got nothing to do with the outcome.
I think, no, I'll relate, I'll bring it home a bit more. So with the example you've just given, so you've got a car, you need to fuel the car to take you from point A to B, all right? Let's assume you are the car, all right? You've got energy, you're moving, you eat, you put in the work, and you're fueling the project to move a project forward, all right? Now, if the car stops along the way, which some cars will stop along the way if they've burnt a lot of energy, they've run for a long time, and they needed to stop. If they've not gotten to their destination, I'm trying to find a way that I can relate to the audience how I could tie all of this together. But I also understand what you mean. Probably you're coming from a medical perspective, but for me, in my brain, that's the easiest way I could bring it home. To come to understand how I've been burnt out, because from a business perspective, it's you're working, you're not seeing the results. Personally, for me, that could lead me to burnout, and not necessarily about a mental. Hey, this is a mental thing, but I don't know.
Could it? I'm thinking if your outcome and your energy is not matching, you're going to be disappointed. Yep. You're going to be feeling sad. Yep. You're going to be discouraged. Yep. And I think that is going to tend to lead more into depression, low mood, lack. You may even go like, oh, I don't want to do this business anymore. You're giving up on it. There's no hope. Every time you're filing losses. So that brings you, I think that would tend to bring you more onto the depression side.
But isn't all of this all tied together? Isn't one leading to the other?
Yeah, but burnout, the way you tried to explain it, unless I didn't understand it properly, it's like you're putting energy into something, but that something does not produce according to the energy
outcome.
that
an outcome, expected outcome. Yeah.
So I think the outcome and the energy is a bit different for me.
Okay.
So burnout is just exhaustion. You're exhausted. You've just been up the whole night. You've not slept for 40 hours. Your body is just giving up. Yeah. So that's burnout. In just simple terms, it's just extreme exhaustion.
So how do we manage burnouts?
You need to be able to take rest, breaks in between your work. Take time off, because again, you can't pour from an empty cup. So even from a business perspective, and you've been a businessman, you need to be able, you're probably leading a team. So there's no way you're going to lead a team when you're exhausted, when you can't just do it anymore. So you need to be able to recognize when your body, and our bodies give us signals. You start to feel, but what we do, we ignore the feelings. So you start to, my neck. And then you give it excuses. I probably slept on a wrong pillow. But it's your body telling you something. It's your body telling you, what, you need to slow down. You need to relax. So the most effective way of treating burnout is rest. Be able to recognize when I'm getting into my limits. Just the same way as we described the car, you're able to see when your car is about that much of fuel, and what do? You go and refuel it. You're not waiting until you're running on fumes. It's the same thing for our bodies. So we need to refill, and refilling is rest. Refilling is, if that means going on holidays, if that means taking time off and just doing nothing, if that means speaking to friends and things like that.
I'll follow up with two questions. Speaking to friends and taking the time off. Now, if you run a business, you understand how expensive sometimes those time off can be. All right? Many times, So many times, as
I know
personally
where
for
you're
me,
heading to.
as a business person, there's an image I posted, a picture I posted on my status a while ago. So it was, this is how other people sleep. This is how I sleep. So other people, they go to bed, they close their eyes, and they're sleeping. Whereas myself, for instance, as a business owner, you go to bed, your brain is still very active. Sometimes you're even feeling guilty for even going to bed because you're asking yourself, look, have I checked all these boxes? You understand? And then that then brings me to how, as a business person, are we allowed or are we supposed to manage that? So, sleep and the guilt that comes with you sleeping, or how do you manage that perceived guilt that comes with you going to bed or trying to customers, going for holiday, knowing that the expectations, there are things that needs to be done that hasn't been done.
Oh, okay. So I think the rest part, we need to start viewing rest as medication. If you went to the doctor and you broke your leg, and they said you need to be on bed rest maybe for 3 or so days, I believe you would be on bed rest, isn't it?
Maybe.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's the same for, but because burnout is basically mental, it's mental.
It's okay for you to say, treat it as medication, but then in the patient's head, they say I was a patient. You're like, how do I help myself sleep better at night? You understand? So it's okay to go see a therapist and tell you you sleep. But how do you manage that guilt that comes with you sleeping, knowing fully well that there's still some tasks you have left undone?
Yeah, but there are techniques that a therapist will teach you about, because this guilt is coming from somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, where did you learn to feel guilty when you are resting? That's a learned behavior. Yeah, you didn't just wake up and just start feeling guilty about sleeping.
Sometimes it could be you're looking at not a good thing, but comparing yourself with others. You understand? You're looking at, okay, for this business, I've done this number of years, I haven't seen this much progress. I should work harder. Some people say, that's foolish, you just work smarter. But regardless, you're saying to yourself, look, I shouldn't be sleeping, I should be working in achieving or trying to achieve some of the goals I've set and things like that. And that's, I think it does. I'll let you respond.
Yeah, and that's why you need to be speaking to a therapist, because they'll take you through some of the steps that you can actually, steps that you can use to be able to get enough rest. Because as you said, we could be going to bed, but we are really not sleeping. Just the fact that you're in bed does not mean you're sleeping. And the fact that you're even sleeping does not mean you're sleeping properly. So, yeah, a lot of the times people be sleeping and you're waking up feeling worse. I don't know if you've ever had somebody say, oh, I'm feeling worse than before I slept. Yeah, it's because their minds were still working. It was active. So there are some strategies and techniques that they can give you that you'll be able to know how to relax yourself and to be able to have a good, settled sleep, proper sleep.
You talked earlier about neurotransmitters. I wanted you to touch on that a bit. What are neurotransmitters?
So it's just like transmission is like messengers that move. We've got our bodies have neurons, and between the neurons it's what we call neurotransmitter. It's just a messenger that moves from one place to the other, moves from one neuron to the other. If it's not right, or if it doesn't take the right direction, then it can bring an imbalance to your body. So that could cause you to have some physical health issues, mental health issues even.
I'll ask you one last question, and then we'll wrap it up. If you were to advise your young self on how to stay mentally fit, what would that be?
Oh, how to stay mentally fit.
Is there anything like mental fitness?
Oh, yeah, it's mental.
What is mental fitness? I just said that one, to be honest.
because in life things happen to us that throw us off balance in terms of mentally. But if you're mentally fit, then it means whatever is happening to you, you're able to it's not going to throw you off the balance. So you're mentally in a healthy place. That means if things of this world come, like if we lose people, if we go through phases in life, then you're able to handle them in a healthier way, other than in the unhealthy way. So that's mental fitness. That's what I would say it is. Yeah.
So what would your advice be to yourself, young self?
The one thing that I wish I did earlier in life was therapy. So the younger self would have been like, should have started therapy early on in life. Yeah.
Why do you think so?
Because remember the statistics that we talked about. Mental health starts, 50% of the mental health begins before the age of 14, and 75 before the age of 24. And our brains really have developed to a certain extent. By the time we are 6 years old, our brains is about 90% developed. So things that happened to us when we were young could translate to how we view things in the future. So therefore, yeah, I wish I started therapy earlier.
How would that have helped you?
It would have helped me to make better decisions in life. It would have helped me to be more, what is it? Is it objective or attuned to my feelings, thoughts, behaviors even? Yeah. Because some of the decisions that we make are tied to our mental health. Everything that we do or experience in one way is impacted by our mental health. So if I'd started that earlier, then it means I would have been healthier from a younger age. So, yeah. And
I think there's more to that story you just shared.
Yeah, the other thing is, what would I share? What would I tell my younger self? It is okay to feel. It is okay to express your feelings, because sometimes we go through stuff and we just think, oh, I can't. I'm not supposed to be expressing my feelings in a way, or I'm not. It's not within my right, or I don't deserve to do this, or some things that happen. The culture that we grew up in sometimes could tell you, black people don't do this, people from our community don't do this, and that's not a thing for us. It's a thing for everyone. So, yeah, it's not, mental health is not we all have a mental health. It's the wellness that we don't have. It's the fitness that we do not have. But everyone has a mental health in general. But the fitness is what I think I should have picked earlier on in life.
I do have a follow-up question.
Yeah, go for it.
I do have quite a few questions. Looking for the best way to put them forward. And one of it would be, what in your childhood, all right, made you realize you would have sought therapy at a young age?
Growing up in a community where you probably taught what to become. Ladies do this, men do this. I think that shaped the way I viewed some of things in life at a later stage in life.
Can you shed more light on that?
I remember you'd be told, girls should not be loud, girls should not be talking where men are talking. It's like ladies in general were the last, we're lower than men. Yeah. So that has an impact on you, even for the choices of career. You think, oh, this career is dominated by men, or even some careers are for men, they're not for women. So, yeah,
Do you
it's...
think therapy would have?
Huh?
Do you think therapy would have managed that for you?
Yeah, because someone would have told me, you know what, no, that is not true. That's probably coming from a person that was traumatized themselves and they didn't know better.
Our parents?
Our parents, our grandparents, our teachers back in, our teachers. So it's all tied in. It's trauma. Trauma does not really have to be like the gross things that happen to us. It doesn't have to be the violence. It doesn't have to be, the war and things like that. Because when we think trauma, we are thinking of the gross things that happen. But trauma can be in two ways. There can be big trauma and small traumas. So some of the things that we thought were innocent, like just saying, oh, girls don't talk loud. Girls are not supposed to be talking where boys are talking, or girls are on a lower level than boys. Then I think that shaped a lot of who we became, or how we viewed things in life in general.
I'm taking that in. I'm taking that in. I'm taking that in. I'm taking that in. Now, for many of us, it's very unfortunate that this was the case.
Yeah.
But it is still true today that in many communities around the world, especially in developing countries in Africa, this is still a practice.
Yeah.
In your view, how do we manage stuff like that?
I think awareness is one of the things that we need to be preaching quite loudly, and people need to be aware, you know what, that is not the case. And some of the things that we feel like you know what, somebody said something to me that was profound one time. They said, trauma decontextualized in a person becomes personality, looks like personality. So people will be walking around saying, oh, this is just the way I am. I'm always sad. I'm always unhappy. I don't like people. I don't like people like that, you know. But it's really somewhere along the lines of you growing up, there was some trauma that happened. And so it becomes like a personality to you. You're just like, oh, that's just me. I'm always jumpy. I'm always like that, you know. Yeah. And then the second part of that is trauma decontextualized in a family becomes like family traits. It looks like family traits, you know. So you'll be like, I don't know if you ever, when you were growing up, you ever heard, that family, all the people in that family are thieves, something like that. Or the men are chaotic, or don't marry from that family, or don't get married to a certain family because they're... So it's the trauma that has been in that family for so long, so it just becomes, people just call it family traits, and they just live with it because that's just how the way. That's yeah. She's just as loud as her mother, you know. She's just messy, you know.
I do think this is what's it called? It applies to the male child just as well as it applies to the female child, but more so for the female child. I said earlier, how would you advise, if you were to advise your young self, what would that be? Now, for the female child growing up somewhere on the streets of Nairobi, which is where you came from, Kenya, yeah? How would you speak to that young girl directly if you were standing or sitting in front of her today and you want to speak to her? All of this you've just said, how not to be the you when you were growing up. All right? What would you say to her?
Oh, I'll tell her that she can become anything that she wants to become. She is strong. She is...
Whatever environment says otherwise, because that would always be the case.
Of course, the environment said otherwise. But now, with awareness, I'll be telling that little girl, that little child that lives in me, that you know what? You are strong. You can do just as much as a boy can do. You can do just as much as a man can do. You are entitled to own land. You're entitled to own good cars. You're entitled to own big homes and things like that. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be men are up there and you are down there. So yeah, I'll tell that little girl, yes, you deserve everything that you dream about. And go ahead and dream.
Where does this culture of men up there, girls down here come from? Where is that learned from?
I think, where did that come from? I think it came from our forefathers, like back. And I may associate it with colonialism, because when people were being colonized, there was all this division about women and men. And I think even in some countries, even in Australia, for women didn't vote until later on in later years, and women were not allowed to own property and things like that. So yeah, I think it's from way before. We are way back. So yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
how I would say.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Deb. There's a question I was going to ask you at the start,
Yeah.
but I guess I'll just ask it now. Right? The question would go towards, like, if someone was watching this, someone stumbled on this podcast, what would they learn about mental health, growing up, and childhood trauma?
Okay, so what I would say is mental health is in the center of what we do every day. And I think everyone deserves to experience mental wellness. So if there's anything that you feel that you don't understand what is happening, I think better speak to a mental health specialist or expert and just have a chat with them and see what is happening. Why is this happening to me? I got this and this and that. It's a long process, though, but I think, yeah, we need to be able to be curious about what is this I feel. Why do I act the way I act? Why do I make such decisions? And especially if you don't make good decisions in life, then you should be able to let this conversation trigger you to be curious about why is it that you behave or experience things the way you do experience.
So mental health is not a Caucasian thing.
No, it's not a Caucasian thing. It's an everyone.
Thing.
It's an everyone thing, and it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't discriminate age. It doesn't discriminate social status. We've got of people that are entertainers, celebrities, who have unalived themselves, and apparently it was linked to mental issues. So it doesn't matter you're rich, you're popular, you're poor. It will attack us all the same.
Thanks so much, Deb, for coming on the podcast. It's a good way to end the podcast. Thanks so much, viewers, for watching. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye.